Greetings. It is late January. We're going to tour my new greenhouse here, and I'm going to tell you about how things are organized, what the big plan is, why I may need to build another one. Yeah, just stuff like that. We're going to look at all the cactus, look at the fun cactus, and talk about them and talk about my goals and stuff. Okay, so this greenhouse is all about propagation. That's why I built it. I'm going to be doing a lot of grafting and propagating, some propagating with pups and cuts, some with grafting. A lot of grafting just because it's the most efficient way to take something like, say, this new seedling, which I just named Verity, this beautiful scope-like Mallophore x Mallophore. How do I propagate that, right? Do I cut the tip off and root it? One tip and then wait, and then what, years, right? More likely I will take one of these ribs and sacrifice it and get 6 or 8 out of one rib and get those growing, and then that next year I'll have a whole bunch more material to work with. So lots of grafting, and that means lots of rootstock. All of it means lots of room. I'm trying to step up propagation, so I have lots of cuttings and lots of plants to put in the ground when I move. I'm hoping to move within a couple of years to a new place that I buy. Yeah, I want to put cactus in the ground. I don't like growing stuff in pots at all. Cactus at least are forgiving. I give them that. But I don't like growing stuff in pots that much. Eventually, the plan is when I move, I have a bunch of cactus ready. In good sized pots, hopefully, well established, right into the ground right away. That's the plan. This is organized by first my very best seedlings, followed by the cactus that I'm most interested in using for further breeding and just growing a lot of because of whatever characteristics I like. And then as we move down, it just gets to less and less interesting stuff, most of which will be used as rootstock. And I'll also be putting in a lot of seedlings for rootstock. And I would rather use seedlings for rootstock because I know they're clean. I grew them from seed. I know that they don't have any kind of virus or anything like that. So I'll be doing pretty much a block. So this is organized by 2.5 feet this way, I think it is. A good sized path here that's probably 20 inches there. 20 inches down the center with a turnaround at the end because I'm going to have cactus against the back wall, and then 2.5 feet there. I have enough small seedlings and seedlings in this range that I can fill a bunch of these Anderson pots and fill this whole thing, and it's around, with a turnaround down there and some space here by the door, it's about 160 pots. I really like these Anderson bands. They are bottomless pots. They have kind of a, I don't know if you could see it, but they have kind of a cross on the bottom that's open, and you have to put in something like this shade or weed cloth. I usually use shade cloth, just old decayed shade cloth that I can't use anymore. Just cut a piece, stick it in there. It works just fine. I like these because they pack tight together, so they're super efficient. 4 of these across, they make a very stable block of plants, and they're very efficient in every way, right? They block out weeds if that's an issue. Obviously not with my ground cloth here, but they do that. They're stable. There's not a bunch of wasted space in here, like putting round pots together where there's just space where there's no soil. It's just a solid block of soil almost the whole way. They have a very low taper. They're nice and thick. They last a long time. Yeah, Anderson pots rock. I also love I don't think there's any in here, but they have a 4-inch pot that has a bottom with holes in it, not the bands, which are just a little cross of plastic on the bottom. That's about a 4-inch size. That's my favorite 4-inch, planting pot. Very similar to these guys. So I'm going to buy a whole batch of these. I'm just going to order a bunch of those Anderson bands and fill this whole row. It's just going to be one solid thing of those with seedlings. And as the seedlings grow and I have the propagation material, I'll graft onto those. I'm going to use a lot of stuff here for grafting, probably a bunch of stuff that people are like, wow, that's amazing. Why are you grafting that? Why don't you grow that? Because my goals are very narrow, and I'm picky, and I have specific things I want, and I don't want a bunch of hangers on that I don't want for any other reason. And keep in mind that, let's say, here's some really nice seedlings right here. And these two, Oscar Mallow-4, are just monsters. They outgrew everything else in their year. But their grooves are fairly deep. You'll see that I have a thing for shallow grooves and like flat-sided cactus. Here's another one. Very, very nice. The spines are a little on the large side. It's just not what I'm looking for. Now, keep in mind, what I'm trying to get at is that I'm not throwing these out. I'm just using them for a while to graft onto. They're already growing pups. At any point, I can let a pup grow. I can cut them back, cut all the grafts off, plant them, and let them grow if I want to, you know, if I get excited about them or something. Which this one, every time I walk by it, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should just keep growing that one. Pretty nice. It's a Jessica Mallow-4. Mallow-4 crosses are awesome. But a lot of this stuff, I just, you know, I'm really not that interested in it or having a lot of it. So I'm just using it as a way to grow the cactus that I want. And then the base plant is still there. I can plant it later, keep using it for grafting, sell it, whatever. Okay, so let's look at the seedlings first. And this is organized by basically my best seedlings and then the stuff I want to use to breed. So this is King Tubby, probably my absolute favorite still cactus that I've grown from seed. Keep in mind that you're going to see just a few cactus, like 7 or 8 probably here, out of possibly tens of thousands at this point of seedlings that I've grown. Okay, so very, very selective. That's King Tubby, King Tubby. There's a bunch of King Tubby here. This is not available yet. I'm trying to get ahead. I want a bunch of plants for myself first. And maybe by this next season, possibly. If not, certainly the next year. And when it does become available, I will have quite a bit of it. Nobody else has it yet. Literally nobody. So this is a cool one. This is Mark Albert's scope number 9 crossed with Jules Giant. It's got the blocky, almost flat sides that I love. It's fat. It's vigorous. It's already thrown 5 pups. It's just a bomber, gorgeous cactus. Yeah, what a specimen there. Yeah, really nice cactus. That doesn't have a name yet, but almost certainly, you know, it'll get a name. This one is Mallow-4 x Mallow-4. Out of all the Mallow-4 x Mallow-4 I grew, which is probably like 1,000 or more. I mean, I grew a bunch of flats of these. Seems to be the best one that I'm most excited about. This one is second. You can see these grooves are a little bit deeper, but this is a really nice cactus, and it just really jumps out. And, you know, can't say no to keeping that one. But this one I just named, it's called Variety, and that's the quality of being true. This one I call Stubbs. I think it's going to be a fairly dwarfed cactus. It's still nice and chubby. It's just got a really nice symmetrical form, these very closely spaced areoles. And it just kind of is like smaller in stature than the rest of them, but it has this kind of like chubby, you know, stout, dwarfy thing going on. It's just a neat cactus. This one is one of the Kimnocks. I'll show you the Kimnock that's the other parent in a second. X Santiensis. Again, flat sides. I call this blockiness. I don't know what other people call it. This is a great example here. Really flat sides. This is close to the same. This has much larger spines than I usually like, but this is just a really, really nice cactus. For breeding purposes, like if I cross this with something scopy, like these Mallow-4 x Mallow-4s, or this one, you know, it'll move in the direction that I want. And either way, I would grow one of these just as a specimen cactus, because it's pretty remarkable cactus, just visually. And otherwise, it's like neat parentage. I'll just show you that Kimnock real quick. It has quite a bit larger spines. I'm not really into this cactus because it's just too spiny. Like, I'm into cactus that you can handle easily. Like, if you look at these PC, like this is kind of like the upper limit of what you can handle them and you can kind of grip around them, but they're not fun to handle. Whereas, you know, something like this may very well go spineless and you can handle it without gloves all day long. Same with this one here. Although this has a little bit smaller spines. And again, for breeding purposes, this isn't totally flat-sided, but it's headed in the direction that I want. So if I'm using this in breeding, like, and I keep breeding it to this blocky stuff, it's going to tend in that direction. This one's Mark Albert's number 10 x number 9. So MA number 10, the Queen, x MA number 9. I would grow this over either one of its parents, number 10 and number 9, which are very, very similar. I was told recently that they may be the same as Tucson Fat. I don't know, but they're kind of like a fairly spiny, pretty deeply ribbed scopulicola type without any notching. This is one here. So out of all the cactus in here, this is one of the bigger ones. It's not quite like Jules Giant big, but it's close, and it's a real nice cactus. But this is number 9 here, I think, or that's probably number 10, and number 9. Number 9 is very, very similar. But yeah, I probably wouldn't use these for breeding anymore. I would go to that because this is closer to what I want. It's fatter, it's 5-ribbed. We'll see if that continues, but it probably will be a trend. So I would use that instead. Both of those parents are lacking in certain qualities that a person might want in their cactus to a significant degree, but it's still an interesting parent. And number 9 gave birth to King Tubby and that. So, you know, and that's number 10 parentage. So it does throw good stuff, but breeding is, I already do breeding. I breed apples and daffodils, and I've dabbled in other stuff. So I know how this works. And it's about building on successes, yours and others, right? It's a progression. We didn't get from a wild lettuce, which you would look at, you wouldn't even recognize wild lettuce as lettuce. It's just this spiny, it's terrible. Like who would even eat that, let alone think, oh, we can make some fluffy, juicy iceberg thing out of it. But, you know, it's a progressive process. So you want to build on successes, and this is a success. That's a success. You know, these are what I'll be using in the next generation. This is one last seedling. Very into this one. It has great traits. It's also blocky, and very blocky and flat. And you can see these pups. Like, look here, how by the time this radius is finished and this has reached kind of its like, let's get down here, close. This has reached kind of its like full diameter. I mean, it's going to grow out, but I'm saying for this pup, like this is full diameter by the time it reaches here. It's already almost flat on both of these pups. And this is like super flat right here. Very into that cactus. It has this beautiful frosted chevron pattern here. So it's a pack, bridge, scop, cross. It kind of reminds me of like, almost like a Bridgesii with the spines switched over to like a pack size of a spine, because a lot of those fat Bridgesii like SSO2 will block out like this really nice. Really cool. I love this cactus. I'll be propagating that for sure. So that's the seedlings, and that's it. You know, like I said, possibly in the tens of thousands of seedlings by now. I haven't been counting, so I don't know, but a lot. And yeah, I've sent out stuff to other people, like you guys, if you buy my cactus seedlings, that's probably as good as the stuff, maybe better, because it's really hard to tell when they're young for sure what they're going to do. So I'm not saying these are absolutely the best cactus out of everything I've grown, but I'm saying of what I've looked at and thought was promising, pulled, grown out, compared to everything else that was grown out, picked out, it's really down to this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cactus. So now we're into the stuff I want to breed with. So we're going to go back here to Bob's Colossus. This thing is gorgeous. It's very similar to this. So this is nice and flat-sided. The spines aren't too big. They're not as small as I would love. You know, I'd like to be able to just walk up to a cactus and grab it. That's the eventual goal. But it's nice and blocky, so that seems like a great one. I'll be propagating that and, you know, growing it out to flowering to try to use it in breeding. This one just got cut this morning. Unfortunately, I had to cut it back pretty far, but, you know, I have my reasons. Hillside X Fields. So this is Hillside Scop X Fields Pachanoi. This is actually Fields, if it's the same Fields, which I think it probably is. Very groovy, lots of ribs. It's like 7 or 8 ribs. Not really what I want, but when you cross that with some, I mean, I don't know what Hillside looks like, but it's probably some big fat, like Australian scop like this. Well, you know, you start getting different things, and you get this beautiful, flat-sided, very, very small spines. Like you could just walk up to this and grab it all day long, no problem. Really nice cactus. So I'm looking forward to getting that up to flowering so I can use that. Here's Maipu, a little less flat-sided, but it's definitely Yeah, I mean, it's really there. Very small spines, but also very soft spines. So there's small, but there's also soft. You know, very big differences. Like if I tried to graft onto this with a pair of pantyhose, or I use foot socks, which are better, check them out. So these are called foot socks, and they're basically like little miniature pantyhose that just go over your foot. It's about 12, 13 bucks for a box of 144. Are just the right size already. You can reuse them. So far, my results have been good. I think they're pretty great, and you don't have to buy like expensive pantyhose and cut them up. It wouldn't hold. These are too soft. They just bend out of the way. So that's cool, a cool trait too. This is kind of a small statured cactus. It has like a lot of street cred though. It has the shape I want, and again, you start crossing it with these monster scop things. You know, the progeny is going to be interesting. Zulk, another scop, also flat-sided, nice, small, soft, relatively soft spines. Nice cactus. So here's Jules Giant. The only thing that worries me about Jules Giant is rust. Even in here, it's getting a little bit of rust. I noticed there's some on there, so it does seem to be rust susceptible. That gives me some pause for like growing a lot of it. I think it'll be all right. I mean, I know people grow it like in the Bay Area and stuff, and it's probably fine. I should ask around about that for people that are like living in the fog zone, because I don't know where I'm going to end up, but good chance it'll be fairly humid all winter long. But yeah, I mean, it's a remarkable plant. It's pretty blocky. It's huge. It's gorgeous. It's fun. Jules Giant. I've gotten a lot of crosses again, like King Tubby, Gop X Jules Giant, Stubbs over there. That's one. That one at the back is also a Jules Giant cross. So yeah, I'm really into that as a parent, and also just growing a bunch of it. This, I was told, was a big spineless scop, but it is looking like it could actually end up just being Jules Giant. I don't know. We'll see what that thing is. This thing is amazing. This is from my friend Nathan Tender in Oregon. I know him from back in the Primitive Skills days. Shout out to Nathan Tender. He sent me a couple seedlings of this cross of Haynes Scop x Aaron Scop. And it's amazing. It's huge. It's going spineless pretty much. It's just wow. And it doesn't quite have, again, the flat sides I want. These are pretty groovy. But, you know, you start crossing it with Bob's Colossus there. Start throwing, again, progeny in that direction, or some of it. And then you pull that and you add it back to the breeding pool. You see how this works, right? Chase the trait. This one is Yogi, which I saw some pictures of this and I was like, I need that. Nice flat sides. This, like down here, whatever this guy sent me, this cutting, no spines at all. These spines are, you know, small and soft. Very interested in getting that up to size and seeing what it looks like, and probably using it in breeding. Now we start to get into the slightly more marginal stuff. Ogun I'll probably end up using. It's actually it's a pretty fat, blocky cactus, actually, from what I've seen so far. Not as much as kind of what I want, but it's in the right direction. And of course, you know, a lot of street cred there. Say like Sunburst, you know, I'm just not sure of this one yet until we grow it up more, how groovy it's going to be. And then from there, yeah, it kind of gets less interesting. Here's Bitterfly. Interesting, but pretty groovy. This is a really cool cactus that I would definitely grow this as like a specimen cactus, but as far as propagating a ton of it, not so sure. That's Hutchins 6212. I could see eventually just getting a bunch of these really notchy cactus like this with these beautiful notching, and just making a breeding pool just of those to like push that forward. So from here on, it just kind of gets less interesting. There's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Tammy grows like crazy. I had a lot of problems last year. It got really cold and I had a bunch of cactus outside, so I really got to see what took the most damage. Wonka Bomba and Tammy were both heavily damaged. Like most of the tips were blown out and I had to cut them off. I'm not that into it. It's too spiny. It's too groovy. Yes, it grows fast. It's super prolific. I'm convinced that there's so much of it just because it's so prolific. It's pupping and growing just constantly, very, very fast. Here's Torres and Torres. Beautiful cactus, but not what I'm after. So again, I'll just use that for propagation and growing the stuff I do want. And then, you know, if I ever want it, I can just pull a pup and root it or just cut off all the grafts and let it grow. So yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff in here. Same with these Mark Albert scops, number 10 and number 9. I don't really have any reason to use these in breeding, so I don't need to get them to flowering. And they make great rootstock. They're going to drive growth super fast. So these are all going to get headed off and grafted. Same with TPM. TPM also takes a lot of winter damage. It's not very hardy. I like it in a lot of ways. It's a beautiful cactus. It has this translucent jade color to it. It pups like crazy. It's a great grower, very prolific. It's got attributes that people want in a cactus, but it's also going to make great grafting stock. I'm going to have 5 heads there that will grow like crazy next year if I graft them. There's still a few PC hanging around here. I've gotten rid of most of my PC, but I still have a few. Use that for grafting. Kimnock, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then we get to the bridges. So the Bridgesii, I've trimmed off the spines off of most of them, except the ones that I kind of am interested in growing further. I really am over spiny cactus. I want cactus I can handle easily in large quantities. I don't want to deal with the spines. I don't want to deal with shipping them. I don't want to get poked by them. When I get a place eventually and put some stuff in the ground, I'll definitely put in a row of some of the best bridges, just probably a few plants. What I'm looking for in bridges is, fat and blocky. This is probably SSO2. It's not labeled, but I'm pretty sure it's SSO2. That I don't know what that is. It might be Lee. Poots, great. That's kind of what I'm after. And bald bridge is nice. So there's probably like 4 that I have that I would actually want to propagate and grow a few of. The rest of this grafting stock. So I just took clippers and I just took all the spines off because I'm going to be handling these and grafting them and moving them. And it's just, I don't want to deal with the spines. So I just despined all of them and they'll make grafting stock for now. Again, they're there if I want them. The genetic is there. I can take a pup at any time. These back here are seedlings that have just been sitting in flats waiting for something, and they're all going to get put in those whatever they are, 5x5 Anderson bands to graft onto later. So with the seedlings, the second growth when they pop is really going to be more characteristic of what the cactus is actually going to do. So grafting these is actually like a pretty good plan. So I can grow these up like that size is fine. Any of these, I could graft them now. Grow a different top, but at any point, if they throw a pup and I'm like, wow, that pup looks interesting, we'll just let it grow and see what it looks like. And if I'm into it, then I'm like, okay, we'll pull that one, right? It's a good plan. It's like a dual use. These TPM are just for farming cuts, so like this one here, I cut a whole bunch of stuff off it recently, like a few months ago, and I still left all this crested growth to, grow more for a year or two, and then I'll cut it again. If you cut all the cresting off, it'll grow from one of these aerials, the spine clusters, and it'll start as a column usually. This one's already kind of mutated, but typically they'll start like these guys and this as a column, and then eventually they might start getting weird. But if you want crest, don't cut all the crest off when you are cutting them for propagating. That one I'm not cutting. That's like specimen cactus. And those are all the standard TPM. My friend Mark Albert actually got that directly from Ben Cam, and that's where all my cuttings came from. These guys are amazing. Terschekii, I'll be propagating these guys by, again, just taking off like a rib. The alternative is to head it off or wait for it to pup, which is probably going to take forever if they even... I don't see these things pup in pictures. I don't know. I only have these, so I don't know what they do. But I'm kind of assuming that they're not prolific. And it's not dinner time yet. Kitty cat. Cat likes the greenhouse. I mean, it's like 5 degrees warmer in here, even on a very cloudy day. You just go back to your little bed there. Okay, my battery ran out. But back to these Terschekii. So... yeah, I'm going to be propagating those. The alternative of cutting them and all that, that just seems like the best solution. I know that it's hard to, like, if you're in love with a cactus and you just, are really into the aesthetics of cactus, it's hard to like deface them by taking off like a rib or a chunk out of it or something like that. But just think how fast, like if I graft this onto something, it's going to grow like big pieces pretty fast, and you're going to have new plants pretty fast, and you're going to have like a whole bunch of them instead of just one. Consider that, I mean, I took one of my first TPMs and I just cut it up into a bunch of pieces, and pretty soon I had tons of TPM. Otherwise I'd just be still there like, oh my God, I don't want to cut my one specimen cactus, right? So even if I took like one rib off this, let alone 2 or 3, I mean, this has like 10 or more. That's a lot of plants, because each one of those spine clusters theoretically should be able to grow a new plant. And look at this thing. I mean, look at that. This thing is just astounding. And it grows fast. Like when I planted this year, it looks like about this high. So we're looking at like 10 plus inches. It could be pushing like 11 or 12 inches of growth just this year of that diameter. That's wild. So these things can grow pretty fast. Now, I don't know anything about terschekii really, so I don't know if this is a hybrid or if it's really just like a short spine terschekii. It just said terschekii. These are again sent to me as seedlings by Nathan Tinder, and I don't know. You guys tell me. I mean, is there such a thing as this in the wild that's called terschekii? It doesn't quite make sense. It seems more likely that it's a hybrid, but whatever the case, those are awesome. I'm going to grow more of them. Propagate. This is actually Bald Bridge right here. The other one I showed you, I said was Bald Bridge, was actually Lee. So Lee seems like a pretty good one too. Kind of maybe, my experience has been it's a little skinny. Okay, so that's the plan. This year, I want to fill this whole row down to the end, again with a little turnaround, with these Anderson bands, 5 inches. I can fit 160 in there. Some of those will be seedlings that I'm going to keep. A few real promising ones I'll let grow and I'll keep them in one spot for further observation. But most of them are going to be grafted. And again, anytime I can just let a pup grow and say, oh, I like that. Let's pull that, cut the graft off and let it do its thing. Along this side this year, I'm going to have to put cactus flats because there's not enough room in the other greenhouse because the cactus flats last year didn't mature soon enough to start selling them in the fall. So I'm going to put tables in here and put like probably around 35 flats of new stuff. I have lots of great seeds. Look forward to seedling sales in the spring and early summer, and all through the summer, basically probably starting in like sometime in the spring. I'm probably just going to have seedlings all the way through next winter. Well, we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to try to get this stuff started earlier, grow it out better. I had a lot of mishaps last year and just things didn't grow right and got set back and everything. Lots of good stuff coming though. I'm trying to grow plants that are big and healthy and ready to go and put in the ground. And to me, that means like pots this size and bigger, like those, whatever these are, maybe 3 or 4 gallon, they would call them. I don't know what they actually are. And that's going to take up a lot of space. Like for instance, if I propagate on these, but then I switch them over to those. By the way, what I want in a cactus pot is square. And I think that like if you took the space taken up by 4 of these, which is 10 by 10 inches, not too high, maybe that high or about this high, these like squats like that, that would be a really awesome size. I mean, look in here at how much space is wasted in here. Yeah. So this space is 2.5 feet, which is what, 30 inches. Those are 5 by 5. So 3 of like a pot 4 times that area would be 10 by 10, which would fill this perfectly in a solid block with none of this wasted space and very stable, right? Round pots, I don't know. I get it. I want square pots. Someone should make that. Okay, there's one more seedling out here in what I call the rust block, the rust belt. And this, sadly, is my seedling Gordita. Gordita is fat. It's so fat that when it rains, it blows up, literally blows up. I have a couple pups like grass out in the field down there outside that are just blown apart. I mean, they just blew apart. So I think what happens is they get rust in these notches and in the grooves, and then that weakens them, and then they swell with water, and she's already so chubby. It's like she's too big inside for her own skin, and just starts to crack. This one literally just blew up. Like it's, you know, what's that going to do in the winter with all the rain? It's just going to rot. Part of the problem is that it gets rust really bad. I mean, almost every plant is infected with rust. And I think what happens is it weakens, you know, these joints. It'll get in these notches and in these like grooves down here, and then it weakens them, and then they blow up with water. And she's just aptly named, let me tell you. Drinks too much and her skin can't contain it, and she blows up. Very, very fat, chubby, flat-sided cactus to a fault, apparently. So I have these rusty cactus outside because I don't want them like infesting the whole greenhouse with spores. The only thing in there that's really very rusty is looking like the Jules Giant, which I don't think is very cold hardy either. So I may treat those just to like, you know, with like a sulfur wash or something to stop it from spreading. Or maybe I'll move them outside and just see how they do and if they die. So the other stuff that's very prone to rust that I moved out here is this Bencam 10508.7. I looked that up, and there was like some spiny cactus. It's a Rio misquiensis, supposedly, but I got this directly from Bencam, so maybe that's mislabeled or this is mislabeled. I don't know. Whatever this is, it's got this really interesting waxy texture and smoothness to it. It's kind of a neat cactus, but absolutely destroyed with rust. I mean, this is like up and down, all over, just rust magnet. So very, very problematic. This one also FR856, very rust prone, very weak, the absolute weakest plant Trichocereus I have, like bar none. These should be at least that big, and this is a low vigor variety too. But this is just unparalleled, like weird mutant, you know, warts, and I don't get that cactus. I have zero interest in that cactus, honestly, personally. Okay, so this is Yowie, and it has been very rusty too. It's taken some damage. It could be started with rust. It could be frost, even though we haven't had that much frost. I don't know what's up with that. And then the other one here is Cactus Kate's Bridge, which is quite rusty, although that came heavily pre-infected from the guy I got it from, who was telling me he was having a lot of problems with rust in his greenhouse. So my take on rust so far, you guys weigh in on this, but my take on it so far is it's mostly about susceptibility, like vastly more about susceptibility than infection. Now, I'm sure if I took these all in there and kept it nice and humid and, you know, or even like spread the spores around on purpose, I'm sure I'd infest a bunch of cactus in there that are normally do pretty well. But that's not the major issue. The major issue seems to be susceptibility. I don't think it's usually very systemic. It doesn't seem like it's something that's inside the cactus and then it's coming out. It's like it starts over from the outside. You know, maybe like the old spots will reactivate in damp weather and grow again. But as far as it like, you know, spreading on even the same cactus, like that Cactus Kate is pretty clean for that last 10 inches, and it's mostly infested like down at the bottom. I think that has to like happen, you know, it has to get up there and get reestablished each year. That's my take on it. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. That's just from observation. That's my plan. This greenhouse is about propagation. Propagate, propagate, propagate. And imagine when I have accumulated like 20 of these super blocky, gorgeous cactus that are leaning in the direction I want, a breeding pool, like a stable of those, and start crossing them all together. Just those. I mean, quite a few of I buy quite a bit of seed for the business, you know, to have good stuff to sell you guys and good stuff to try. And a lot of the crosses, I'm just like, why is that cross made? It almost seems like it's just because they were there, you know. As a person who already breeds plants, and I've seen the results. I've seen what happens when you pick two parents intentionally and you put them together, and then you go, oh wow, like light bulb moment, like what, when I can take that and just move it forward into the next generation and make amazing things happen, right? So very intentional. My crosses will be very intentional going forward. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't like ever cross a bridge back into these, into like a scope or something like that. But for now, you know, I know what I want, and I'm leaning in a very specific direction, and I'm going to keep, you know, even when I get these big enough to breed, I'm going to breed with them, grow them out, and then I'm going to bring the best stuff back into this gene pool and start taking the least good stuff out. That's how you do it. Catch you later.